Sorry. Ooh. This is narrow. Ooh.
Right over a lot of cave basics, just in case this is your first time in a cave, or if it's been a while, give you a little bit of a refresher. So first we're going to talk about how the cave was formed. It starts at this crack here, and stretches the entire length of the cave. It's called the lifeline, and it's what started the creation of the cave. Now the crack was formed a long time ago during an event called the Ozark Uplift, which is what created all the hills and mountains that you see today while you drive around. While that was going on, thousands of cracks were sent through the entire state of Missouri in the general Ozarks area, and a lot of them eventually turned into caves. What that process looks like is rainwater seeping through the crack and then eating away at the rock around us. Same rocks that you see while you're driving around, those big stone ledges, those are made out of limestone and dolomite. Both are soluble to water, so with enough time and enough water, you're eventually going to have a large hole like the one we're in today. While the void is being created, some ledges will form and water will drip along the sides, but this time, instead of the water eating away at the rock, sometimes it'll leave behind some mineral deposits, and these will collect and grow to make all of these calcite formations here. So these are all naturally formed by water, but they do take a long time, around 100 years for every. See an older walkway. Now it's not older than the walkways that we've been using. Like I said, they're all 96 years old. This one definitely looks like it, because this one was never updated. So you'll see the long rusted steel pipe. This is what they used to have back in the day. Obviously we have since updated for obvious reasons. But this walkway is about 1.5 feet wide, 4 feet tall. So no matter how you slice it, whichever way you're going, you're going to be squatting, ducking, maybe even crawling, depending on how tall you are. It's just a small room that they used to use, kind of like how we have the room with the green seats. After you bought your ticket, they'd actually send you into the cave and you'd sit up on that platform and then wait for your tour guides to get ready and you'd start. It was probably like a 15 to 20 minute process, because it would also time to adjust to the darkness before you started your tour, so you felt safer, more comfortable, and could see more of the cave. He lowered in, so we named it after himself. He went through the exact same hole we went through earlier, directly above this platform here. So that placed him about 10 to 15 feet away from the formation, sitting on a log with just a candle in his hand. So he couldn't see too much, pretty much just this little front portion here, especially with the sun making its way through the hole. So he actually yelled up to his men and told them to stop lowering him because he thought he saw an angel. If you can't see it, I'll help you out. You've got the left wing right there, right wing, and the robe. That is our angel formation, and the main inspiration for the first name of Fairy Cave, because the first thing he saw was a fairy-like figure. You might see other things though. We do get a lot of different answers, mostly double scoop ice cream cone. It's a big one, the scoop, and cone. You might also see a flying parrot. It's a pretty big one. And if you can see that, then look right over there. On the rock ledge, you're going to see a small floating stalagmite. Keep looking at it. Whenever I turn off my light, it'll turn into a gnome. Pointing at a little beard. On the opposite side, you're going to see the Grand Cathedral. Same formation we were looking at earlier, but now you have a little bit of a better perspective to show how massive it is, since you're literally standing right next to it. You can't even see the whole thing. It's still huge. You really can't beat the view that you get in the 20-foot tall draperies. Nice view of the concrete. I know it's not as exciting, but you can see the entire staircase that we've been walking on. It goes all the way down to the bridge you're standing on now. And believe it or not, the place where you're standing now is the same that's closed off. We'll start from the top. So the ladder here was just put in a couple years ago. There's not really any cool stories. It's probably close to 3 years ago now, but hasn't really found yourself under a view. Feel free to look straight up. You should see the hole in the middle. You'll also notice making them fragile. Whenever you see a great number of these, that's a pretty good indicator that you're close to the lowest and wettest part of the cave. Another good way to tell would just be looking down and seeing our pool. It's not much of a pool, just a couple inches deep of water right now. That's just because we're in the summertime, we're not seeing as much rain. Typically the water line's up there, or up there, depending on what angle you've got. So we're like a little over a foot down from what we usually are at. In the springtime and the fall, whenever we get a little bit more rain, that's whenever the water stays at that level. But also in the springtime, if we ever get too much rain in about a week or even just a few days, the water can flood. Doesn't happen here, the water can get up to here. On crazy days, it can get up to here. Usually drains overnight, but during the day while the water's at that level, we do bring people in. It's just typically a modified tour. So if you're making your way in and the water's at this level, you're obviously not going to be going into the water. But we'll still take 3.5 miles, so a total of around 4 miles traveled from that hole to Table Rock Lake. Like I said, it's completely natural. We didn't have to do any digging, mining. We don't have to pump the water out. It does it all on its own. We have sent some people into the hole, but like I said, not for any mining or digging. It's really just for fun. Probably around 20 people have done it to go all the way back to 50 or 60 feet that you can go. That's the only way you could go humanly possible. A few more have gone in about 20 feet, but after that it gets really tight. Now we do have a nickname for the drain. It's called the Dragon's Lair, because if you look right there on the wall, you'll see our dragon head. Right there's the first eye, second eye, nose, horn, mouth, and scales. So eye, nose, horn, mouth, scales.
Nice.
Ancient bear tooth from 3,000 years ago. And all that stuff is super cool, but in my opinion, the most exciting thing they found wasn't the little bunny skeleton. You might remember a story of a bunny back in 1883. A lot of people asked what happened to him, did he make it? And the hole's right there. And we found a bunny skeleton right here. So you can probably connect the dots and figure out what happened to him. Of the hole, you're going to see a small section of draperies. Believe it or not, at one point, this was the main attraction of the cave. Whenever people came to tour, this is what they were looking for. It's because this is called the Fairy's Heart. It's where our original tour guides would bring in rubber xylophone mallets, walk down here. Keep in mind there was no concrete handrail at the time, so they'd walk onto this concrete ledge and actually tap the draperies as musical instruments. They would play neat little things like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Mary Had a Little Lamb, just kind of simple stuff that the tourists would recognize. However, it is a fully capable instrument, so you could virtually play whatever you wanted. Except these are very fragile. You might see some chips, some cracks, or even some entire formations broken off. Once they noticed they were doing the damage, they did have to stop doing it, which is why we don't do it anymore. These are obviously very fragile. But while it was going on, it was a main attraction. We actually brought in Ripley himself from Ripley's Believe It or Not. He came in, did a whole fairy cave tour, saw the cathedral, saw the column. So he actually wrote an article on it in the 30s and 40s, put that out for his people to see, which obviously brought a decent amount of people in and drummed up some business, which meant we were playing it more, which is what brought in